Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to pull out those key nuggets of knowledge, helping you navigate, well, our pretty complex world. Today we're diving into something really profound. What if our life experiences, especially those really early ones, don't just shape our minds? What if they literally leave a physical mark on our biology? Sounds a bit like sci-fi, but it's very real. And it's changing how we understand ourselves. Okay, let's unpack this. We're exploring the world of epigenetics today. It's this fascinating new frontier. It really helps us understand that dance between our environment and our genes, especially when it comes to our emotional well-being. It gets to the why behind our feelings, our behaviors, and maybe offers some real hope for change, for healing.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're drawing from the work of Dr. Valentin Radoy. He's a psychiatrist and psychoanalytical psychotherapist. Dr. Radoy's work looks right at this, how early experiences shape personality, how we manage emotions, and sort of the whole landscape of mental suffering. So our mission today is really to explore how biology shapes our sensitivity. We'll touch on genetics, brain circuits, chemistry, stress, and the big one, epigenetics. We want to demystify these biological marks, how they work, especially thinking about conditions like borderline personality disorder or BPD.
Right.
And for you listening, understanding this stuff, it's not just for the experts, you know?
Yeah.
It gives you powerful insights into why you feel the way you do, sometimes in ways that feel, well, totally out of your control. And maybe more importantly, it offers real tangible hope. Hope for change, for healing. It takes it beyond just ideas and into, like, our very biology.
Okay, so we know genes are the blueprint,
Right.
the basic code. But what if there's this other layer, information above the code that's like quietly influencing how the blueprint gets read, like an operating system for our DNA?
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
It's not about changing the letters, the DNA sequence itself, but changing how it's interpreted. And that's epigenetics. It shows that our experiences, especially early on, they don't just leave memories. They leave actual physical marks on our biology.
Yeah.
It's like discovering a whole new layer to our genetic story.
It is. And what's really neat is the core idea is actually pretty elegant. Quite intuitive when you break it down. Think of genes like the letters in a book. Just the text itself, epigenetics, that's like the punctuation, the highlighting, maybe underlining certain words. It changes how you read the story, emphasizes bits, silences others, but you're not rewriting the letters. The DNA sequence stays exactly the same. It's all about expression, how the story is told, not changing the fundamental text.
That punctuation and highlighting idea,
That's
yeah, that really clicks. It changes the reading, not the text. So if genes are like letters in a book, can we zoom out, maybe think bigger, like a whole library?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's run with that. Imagine your DNA is this massive library, just full of books. Each book is a gene holding instructions for different things your cells need to do. The books, the genes, they're always there on the shelves. But epigenetics, it's like the librarian deciding which books get opened, which pages get highlighted for easy reference, and which books stay shut, maybe never even get read. It's the dynamic librarian and the reader, sort of shaping which parts of your genetic potential actually get used.
Okay, that library analogy makes a lot of sense. So these marks or switches deciding which books get read, how does that actually happen chemically? What are these tiny mechanisms really doing?
Right. So it happens through these little chemical tags or switches. They physically attach either to the DNA itself or to the proteins that DNA is sort of wrapped around like thread on a spool. The most common one, the one we hear about most, is called DNA methylation. Think of it like a dimmer switch for a light, or maybe a volume knob on a radio. It can basically dim or silence a gene, make its message quieter, or turn it off altogether. It's like putting a sticky note over a paragraph you want to ignore for now.
A dimmer switch for our genes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a powerful image. But is it just about dimming? Are there other kinds of switches, other ways these instructions get managed?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Beyond methylation, there are other cool mechanisms. So imagine that DNA thread is wound around these tiny protein spools called histones. Well, epigenetic changes can affect how tightly or loosely that thread is wound. If it's packed really tight, the genes are hidden, hard to read, like closing the curtain on a stage. If it's looser, the genes are exposed, easy to access. Curtains open. And then you've got things like microRNAs, tiny molecules acting like editors, fine-tuning how the gene's message actually gets turned into action, making sure you get the right amount of protein at the right time. So it's this whole sophisticated dance of tiny chemical tweaks, all influencing how genes are expressed.
It's pretty incredible to think these tiny, intricate switches have such a massive impact on, well, everything about us. What makes these marks show up? Is it random? Or are there specific things, experiences that trigger them?
Definitely not random. They're often direct responses to our environment, our experiences. common triggers. Things like significant ongoing stress, physical or emotional trauma, like our diet, exposure to toxins. But also, on the flip side, positive things. Supportive relationships, enriching environments, they can make marks too. And the really key point here is that these changes aren't just temporary blips. They can be really long-lasting because they become part of how our cells actually remember past experiences. They don't rewrite the code, like we said, but they fundamentally change how that code gets interpreted, sometimes for years, decades even.
That's quite something. It makes me think about identical twins. They start with the exact same genes, the same
Mm.
blueprint, but they can end up so different sometimes. Different health issues, different personalities. Could epigenetics help explain how their paths diverge, even with the same DNA?
Absolutely. It's a classic example. Genes definitely set the stage, right? They provide that identical foundation for twins. But epigenetics, that helps write the script for how those genes actually play out. So even though identical twins have the same DNA sequence, their individual lives, different stresses, maybe different diets, subtle differences in how they were cared for can trigger different epigenetic marks. And these diverging marks can lead to differences in their emotions, their health, their traits. It explains why one twin might develop an illness, for example, and the other doesn't. Even with the same genes, their genes are the same, but how those genes are used can become quite different over time.
So it sounds like it could actually be empowering. If these marks respond to experience, does that mean they're permanent? Stuck forever? Or is there hope? Can these biological adjustments be reversed?
And this is probably the most crucial point, the most hopeful insight, really. It's the critical takeaway for you listening. Many epigenetic marks are reversible. Yes, they can change, which means biology isn't this fixed, unchangeable destiny. Things like therapy, building supportive relationships, making positive changes in your environment, even certain medications. Sometimes these can actually reset those switches. The evidence really shows our biology is much more flexible, much more responsive to healing and positive change than we ever thought. It really challenges that old idea that, once your genes are set, that's it, your fate is sealed. Not true.
Wow, okay. That feels like a massive shift in how we think about development, about resilience. And it makes me think straight away about conditions like borderline personality disorder, where those past experiences seem to echo so strongly, right, in the present moment. Is this where epigenetics gives us that biological lens to see that connection?
Exactly that. For BPD, epigenetics offers a really compelling way to understand how things like childhood trauma or neglect or just ongoing unrelenting stress, how those things can get biologically embedded. These powerful early experiences, they don't change the DNA letters, but they can profoundly shift how certain genes are switched on or off. And those changes can stick around for years, shaping how someone feels, how they react, their patterns of behavior. It shows it's not just in their head, it's physiological, it's an imprint.
Right. So instead of us getting bogged down in like a huge list of specific gene names, which can be overwhelming,
Yeah.
can you talk about the types of genes affected? And more importantly, what does that actually mean for someone living with BPD? What are the real world effects?
Yes, that's a much better way to approach it. We see epigenetic changes clustering around several key categories of genes. First, you've got the stress response genes. These are the ones controlling how fast your body kicks into fight or flight, but maybe more importantly, how quickly it calms back down. When these genes are affected epigenetically, it's like your internal alarm system gets stuck on high alert long after any real danger has passed. So for someone like Anna, who we'll discuss more, this meant her body was just constantly primed for threat, reacting massively to even small things. Her stress just it wouldn't switch off easily.
Okay, that makes sense. The alarm stays on.
Exactly. Then there are the neuroplasticity genes. These basically govern your brain's ability to adapt, to learn, to form new emotional pathways. Epigenetic changes here might make it harder for the brain to forge those new, healthier connections or learn different ways of coping. But, and this is really critical, psychotherapy has actually been shown to reverse some of these specific changes, which suggests treatment isn't just talking. It might be literally reshaping biology, helping the brain become more flexible, more open to healing.
That's incredible. The idea that therapy could have that direct biological effect, actually change how genes are read. Wow. What about the mood stuff, the emotional roller coaster we often associate with BPD?
Right. We also see epigenetic marks on genes involved in mood and impulse regulation, specifically systems involving serotonin and dopamine key neurotransmitters. Changes here can contribute to those really intense mood swings, the impulsivity, that heightened sensitivity to feeling rewarded or maybe more often rejected. It's like the volume controls for emotional highs and lows are kind of out of whack, leading to more extreme, faster
Out of
shifts.
whack, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
And another key area is the attachment system. Now, this isn't fully proven specifically in BPD yet, but studies in related areas suggest epigenetic changes in genes linked to oxytocin. Oxytocin, sometimes called the love hormone, changes there might contribute to difficulties with trust, feeling close to people, forming secure attachments. And for many people with BPD, those struggles with intimacy, that fear of abandonment, they're really central. Epigenetics gives us a biological way to think about why those patterns feel so deep-seated. And beyond those big categories, we're seeing differences in genes linked to memory, learning, even basic cell repair. Some studies even found signs of, accelerated biological aging in women with BPD who had attempted suicide, almost as if their cells had physically aged faster under all that chronic stress.
These are really powerful findings. It adds such a layer of understanding, doesn't it? Let's bring this to life with Anna's story. You mentioned her. She often felt her past was, quote, written into her body. Can you expand on that? What did that feel like for her, and how does the science back that up?
Yeah, Anna's experience is such a clear illustration of all this. She used to say her stress response felt like a car with no brakes. Even years after her difficult childhood, something small, a particular tone of voice, maybe just a look from someone, could trigger this massive reaction. Sweaty palms, heart racing, just this overwhelming emotional crash. It was like her body physically remembered the danger, even when her conscious mind knew she was safe now. And the science says that's not just a metaphor, it's biologically plausible. Trauma can leave these specific chemical marks on those stress and emotion genes we talked about, essentially keeping the body primed, ready for danger that isn't actually there anymore. So for Anna, yeah, her nervous system was always dialed up a bit higher, her emotions quicker to ignite, and crucially, it took her much longer to calm down afterwards compared to someone without those marks. Her whole system was on high alert, a biological echo of the past.
Gosh, that sounds completely exhausting, just living on that edge all the time. But Anna's story, it also has hope in it, right? What was her path forward, and how does that tie back to this idea of biological flexibility?
It absolutely does. Anna found her way through consistent, dedicated psychotherapy and also by really working to build and nurture supportive relationships. And slowly, over time, she noticed real changes. Those moments of feeling safe, connected, stable, they started to last longer. They felt more solid. The huge reactions started to lessen. They became less frequent, less intense when they did happen. And this lines up perfectly with the research showing that therapy itself, that healing process, can sometimes reverse those harmful methylation patterns, especially on those stress and neuroplasticity genes. It means healing experiences don't just change your mind or how you see things. They might literally be changing how your genes get read. It's a powerful testament, really, to the body's ability to heal when it gets the right kind of support.
What's so fascinating here, what really stands out, is how this deep dive into epigenetics finally bridges that old nature versus nurture debate, doesn't it? It shows us, scientifically, how early life adversity doesn't just affect us psychologically.
Yeah.
It interacts with our underlying genetic sensitivities to literally shape our long-term emotional landscape. It's not just one or the other, it's this constant dynamic interplay. We're only just starting to grasp it fully.
Exactly. And understanding that brings such an empowering message. These epigenetic changes are not fixed. They're not some immutable destiny written in stone. The evidence is really mounting that they can shift, whether it's through therapy, some nice medication, or even just sustained positive life changes, supportive relationships. These biological marks can change, and that's a huge aha moment, I think, for anyone listening. It shows that while our past definitely shapes us, it doesn't have to rigidly define our future. It moves us away from thinking our genes are totally deterministic towards a more dynamic view. We have agency.
That's a much more hopeful picture.
It is, and it also helps explain something else. The sheer variety we see within conditions like BPD. Why isn't everyone the same? Well, not everyone with BPD has the exact same biology or the exact same history, right? So different patterns of these epigenetic marks might underlie different symptom clusters, different clinical profiles. It helps explain that diversity. It gives us a more nuanced, more individual way to think about the different paths into and hopefully out of this kind of suffering.
Okay, so let's try and boil this down to really bring it all home for everyone listening. What are the absolute key takeaways from our deep dive today?
Okay, the bottom line in simple terms. First, trauma and stress, especially early on, can leave actual chemical marks on your genes. And these marks mess with how you regulate emotions and stress. Second, these marks can make you more vulnerable to intense feelings, yes, but also to recovering more slowly from upsets and maybe acting more impulsively. Third, we find a lot of these changes on genes related to really critical stuff. Stress hormones, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and even the brain's ability to change and adapt its plasticity. And fourth, and this is the big one, therapy, supportive relationships. These things might actually help reverse some of these marks. It shows our biology is flexible, it can heal, it can change.
That really captures it. Epigenetics helps us see why conditions like BPD,
Mm.
they aren't destiny. The story isn't set in stone. It can be rewritten, not by changing the DNA letters, but by changing how that genetic information gets read, how it gets expressed. It really is a message of profound hope and agency.
And that brings us to a final thought, something for you to chew on after this. If our life experiences, especially those really early ones, can literally change how our genes are expressed in these deep ways, what does that mean for us as a society? What are the implications for public health, for focusing on early childhood development, for ensuring access to supportive, nurturing environments right from the start? Just consider how much power we might have, not just to shape our own individual futures through healing, but maybe even the biological landscapes of whole generations to come, simply by creating better, safer, more supportive worlds for kids to grow up in.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really powerful idea to think about.